Hi guys, good evening. Let's get started for today's session. Let me share my screen. Can you all see my screen? Alright, okay. Thanks. Yeah. So the topic for today is okay. Actually, yesterday we started with some introduction to database and database management system, and we started with MySQL in the case of relational database, and we started with something like DDL, DML, and DQ and other things. Okay, so we'll see some advanced things in MySQL, something like class. So this is a class. Okay, and we'll have something called aggregate functions, and what is the keys and primary keys and much more things. Okay, so let's get started. So class is nothing but we have written like DML, DQL queries, right? So insert, update, delete, and select, right? So those are all something called language. Okay, so basic SQL language queries. So inside your query, if you want to add some additional things like sorting, or selecting a particular row or having some conditions, okay, so those things we will implement them using class. Okay, so there are multiple things. Okay, we'll go one by one. Okay, so first thing is distinct. Okay, so I will go to my post table here. Okay, so if you see, I will zoom in. Okay, so in my post table I have three data. One is 123 ID, and which has some user ID and title. Okay, distinct is nothing but suppose you have some duplicate values inside each row. Okay, so then it will give you only one row. Okay, so for example, here in my table I have user ID. Okay, so user ID column, you can see there are three values, 1 and 2. Suppose you need to find that are the unique value that is inside your user ID. Okay, you can use that distinct one. Okay, so distinct class, how can you do that? So here, go to the distinct. Okay, so first see, I'm going to list all the user ID alone. Okay, so if I do that, I will get like 1 and 2 because my database has 1 and 2. Okay, suppose if I want to get the distinct one, okay, so I need only the distinct values, not the duplicate values. So you can just add distinct here. Okay, so if you run this, only 1 and 2 will be displayed. Okay, so that is the purpose of your distinct. Okay, so distinct is to separate the results or fetch the results distinctly. Okay, so if you have some duplicate things, okay, so it will give you only one thing. Okay, so one matching thing. So that is what a distinct is. Okay, it applies to other field as well. It's not like only for user ID. So suppose for example, so I'm just displaying whole row. Okay, so suppose here I will have something like okay, I cannot edit it here. Okay, so suppose you have some duplicate values in whole data inside it, like 1 1 test, same way 1 1 test. Okay, suppose you have two duplicate rows. Okay, so then if you use distinct here, okay, so distinct of star. Okay, so you can even use star. Okay, so not like only one field, you can even use all the fields. It will match the unique value in each and every field. Okay, so if it is like 1 1 test and again 1 1 test, okay, it will display only one row. Okay, so that is all about your distinct. Okay, suppose if you want to have only one field, okay, you can go ahead and use something called, for example, I'm going to use only one column. Okay, user ID column, so it has to some distinct values like 1 and 2. Okay, so this is all about your distinct. Okay, Clear on this? Clear on the distinct part? Okay. So now let's move on to the next class. Okay. So which is something like var class. So this is the major thing that you usually use. So what is a var class? Okay. So var is nothing but if you want to have some condition. For example, yesterday you guys asked me, right? Suppose if I want to select only one row or select only two rows and other things, okay? You can use conditions, okay? So that's what var is, okay? So you can add var here. So var, for example, where you can mention conditions. For example, wherever user ID is 1, okay? So user ID equal to 1, okay? Suppose if we mention it in this way, okay, so whatever the rows, suppose if you have 100 rows, okay, it will display only those rows that has user ID equal to 1, okay? So if I run this, okay, see only my first two rows is displaying, okay? So that is all, that is the purpose of your var here, okay? So if I run this directly, okay, without var condition, so I just commented this, okay? So if without I'm running this, okay, it is displaying all the data, okay? Suppose if I add a condition, okay, where user ID equal to 2, okay, so then only this particular row will be displayed, okay? So because it has user ID 2, right? So user ID equal to 2 and that particular row is only displayed, okay? So this is all about your where condition, okay? It's not like equal, okay? You can even use not equal, okay? So if we do this, so all the data, okay, except user ID not equal to 2, okay? So those rows will be displayed. Same way if you want to add something like greater than condition, okay, so greater than 1, okay, so greater than 1 is only user ID 2 is greater than 1, okay. Same way if you want to have greater than equal to, we can have them as well. So greater than equal to, same way for less than. So suppose if you want to have less than 2, okay, so only 1 will be displaying here. Same way less than equal to, you can add those conditions as well, okay. So less than, greater than, and basic whatever you use in your if condition, right? So those will be available here, okay. So this is something like an if condition for it is SQL statements, okay. So where user ID less than equal to 2, okay. So that is the thing here, okay. So now you can ask me like where condition is only for select, okay. So you can use it for update, okay. For example, yesterday we saw update query, right? So update, okay. So what is the table that we are going to update post, okay, set. For example, I'm going to modify title to test, okay. So yesterday we saw this example, right? Test, okay. So if I do this, it will update for all the rows, okay. We can add where condition. So where user ID, okay. So if we do this, okay, it will update the title for here, right? So update the title only for where user ID equal to 2, okay. So if I run this, it will be updated, and if I run this, okay, so now see so what is happening here? Okay, sorry, I have a, just give me a minute, I have a settings problem. Okay, so now see here, so I'm going to update my post, okay. So if you can see here, I have 3 posts, okay, and my second post here at user ID equal to 2, okay. See, it has some title, some randomly NHF or something like this, okay. I'm going to update it to test, okay. So update post set title equal to test where user ID equal to 2. So if I run this, okay, so if I go and run this here, see, it will be updated. Only that particular row will be updated, okay. So yesterday someone asked me this question. So how to update only one particular row or only one particular like 2 rows and other things, okay. You can add your conditions inside your where condition, okay. Here, whatever the condition like where user ID equal to 2 or whatever, okay. So you can mention them here. It can be equal to, it can be not equal to, whatever, okay. Clear on this? Clear on the where condition? So where conditions can be used in both the select queries and the update queries. Same can be used in your delete statement as well. Suppose if you want to delete data, suppose I want to delete my third data here, okay. So delete. So this is the query, right? So yesterday I told you delete from posts where user ID equal to 2. Okay, so what happens if I run this? Okay, only user ID 2, that particular data only will be deleted. Okay, so if I run this, okay, and go here and run this, okay, only two data are updated. I mean, two data are available inside your condition. Okay. Okay, so now, so where condition is done. Okay, so on where condition. So let's move on to and or not and other things. Okay, so here I told you, right, suppose select star from post where user ID equal to 2, so there will be no data, so user ID equal to 1. Okay, so I just displayed select star from user ID equal to 1. Okay, so this is one condition. Okay, suppose if you want to have multiple conditions, unlike like two conditions, okay, you can use either use and, right? So for example, and we can have something like id equal to 2. Okay, so two conditions, okay, where user id equal to 1, okay, and id equal to 2. So user id equal to 1, okay, and id equal to 2. Only this particular row only will be displaying. Okay, so that is what and does. Okay, see, that particular data is only going to display. Okay, so basic if conditions. Okay, and or not and other things. Okay, same way you can use or condition here. So or is nothing but either one condition satisfies. Okay, so both the rows will be displayed here. Okay, so or condition. So user ID equal to 1 satisfies and all the data has been listed. Okay, so that is the thing. And same applies to your not. Okay, so you can either use like here. Okay, I need to show you an in statement first. I will show you in. Okay, so and are not are done. Okay, so then let's move on to the inquiry. Okay, so in is nothing but if you are going to have multiple things. Okay, so multiple values in the same row. For example, user ID. Okay, so I'll remove this. So I have these data. Okay, so user ID equal to 1. Okay, I will add some data to it. Okay, let it be. Okay, so here I am going to write in condition. Okay, in is nothing but you can mention multiple values. Okay, so where id, okay, in, okay, see, in, okay, not is equal to, okay, it's in, and you can mention multiple values inside it, like 1 comma 2 comma 3 and whatever. Okay, so all the rows, okay, which has id equal to 1 2 and 3 only will be displayed. Okay, so in is to mention multiple conditions. Okay, so in is to give multiple conditions. So that is the purpose of your in. Okay, so if I do this, okay, so 1 and 2 is displayed. Okay, so we have only two data and that's why it's displaying 1 and 2. Okay, so that is about your in. Okay, suppose if you want to have not in this particular id, okay, you can just add not here. Okay, so not in, so that is why we use not. Okay, so id not in 1 comma 2 comma 3. Okay, suppose if not in 3 and comma 4. Okay, so except id 3 and 4, all the data will be displayed. Okay, so if I run this, so ids 1 and 2 is displayed. Okay, so not in particular value. Okay, so if you want to have multiple conditions, sorry, multiple values, you can use in. Okay, and if you want to have a reverse condition, you can use not in. Okay, so these are all, everything comes under your where condition itself. Okay, so not and in. Okay, clear on this? Can everyone confirm? Clear on this? Okay, so let's move on to the next. Okay, so what I'll do is, okay, I'll go to like here. Okay, so like, so here we have something called like statement. Okay, so first I need to explain wildcards. So wildcards is nothing but, okay, your MySQL uses wildcards using something called percentage. Okay, so wildcards. So wildcards is nothing but it's going to make use of something called percentage. Okay, so see, This is the hierarchy. Okay? So this is the example. Okay, so if we use percentage, okay, so a percentage, something like this, okay, it will give you all the data, okay, that starts with a, okay, and this can be any data, okay, so all the values that starts with a, okay. Same way, if I have one more conditions like, so for example, percentage b, okay, so what it means is, so percentage means all the characters and that ends with b, okay, so ends with b. So same way, if you want to have it in this way, okay, all the words that starts with something like, okay, could be, okay, so what it means is it can be any words. For example, I have something called sun, okay, so if I do this, only this particular data here, right, that will be displayed, okay, other things will be removed, okay. So let's see. So here, where title, okay, so that's where so wildcards can be used using like statement, okay. So where title like, okay, so I can do this and I can mention something like this, percentage, okay. Suppose I need to get all the titles that starts with a, okay. So suppose I do that, something I like, if I do it this way, okay, so it will list all the title, okay, that starts with a, and other than that, any characters, okay. So basically it starts with a, okay. So if I run this, see, only that particular data will be displayed, okay. Same way, so you can use it in this way. So where you put your percentage depends, okay. So suppose if I put the percentage here, okay, and I have the d here, okay, so all the rows, that's all the values, okay, that starts, sorry, that ends with d, okay. So percentage defines all the characters and d, okay, so it ends with d, okay. So here, okay, I have t here, okay. So if I start with t here, okay, if I do this, so see, title that ends with T, okay, only will be displayed, okay, not other rows, okay. So this is how we use. For example, you can use percentage at both the case here, okay. Suppose if you want to find title that's everything starts with sun, okay, so something like that, yeah, that has a word sun, okay. So this is going to search in your title, okay, that has sun, okay, in its something in its title, okay. So if I run this, okay, only this particular record will be displayed, okay, because title has something called sun in it, okay. So it's not like only first letter or second letter, okay. Basically, whatever it matches inside your value, it will display. For example, if I use AU, okay, so here I here I have AU, right. So if I do this, okay, same values will be listed, okay. So because your title value is having something called AU, okay. So you can even use in this way something, or this is something like a regular expression, okay. You can use your wildcards to use it in this way. So starts with a, ends with b, and if someone, if some of the values has sun in its title, okay, so you can have them as well. So this can be applied in your body, any columns, okay. Clear on this? Clear on the like and wildcard? So we basically, the use cases, for example, in the front end, we will be having search, right? For example, if I search some name, okay, so it's the same example. So if I go here, so if I go to google.com, okay, so basically these recommendations are coming from database, right? So if I type D, okay, what will they will do is they will do the query here, something like D, okay. So whatever the matches with the D, okay, that particular data will be displayed, okay. Suppose if I do this, something like this, okay. So if the all the values that matches with the AMA, okay, so here they will be having something like this, okay. So all the values will be listed from here. So this is the use case of your like, okay. So like statements, these things, everything we will be using it for searching purpose, okay. Yeah, so your like and wildcards is done. So now we will have order by, okay. So I run the query, okay. So my database now has just two datas, okay. So order by, we have something called order by. So as you assume, okay, order by is nothing but sorting, okay. Suppose you want to defaultly sort by your ID, for example, I can give like this, order by, okay, ID. Okay, so if I do this, okay, it will be by default it's ascending order. If you use order by ID, okay, it will ascending. It will come from as a ascending order in your ID. Okay, Same way, if I want to use descending order, I can use it in this way, DESC. Okay. If I do this, see, now ID is sorted by descending, and your result will be coming in the descending order. Okay. So if we can use ascending, so by default it's ascending. You know what? You don't need to mention ascending here. Okay. So it comes as an ascending here. Same way, if you want to use descending, you can use descending as well. Okay. So sorting. So basic sorting things will be used in your order by. Okay. So order by that particular column and the direction. Order by ID descending. If you want to have like order by title, okay. So if you have order by title, okay, and descending, okay. So first it starts with S here and A here, right? So first will be coming here, okay, S and A, because you use descending. Suppose if you use ascending, A will be coming first and then the S. Okay, the same applies to your body and other columns as well. Okay, clear on this? Clear on the order by and this part? Already. So we missed to write the queries here. So distinct. So I'm going to give you a reference. See, distinct. Okay, so distinct is to select distinct. Suppose if I use user ID from post, okay, it will list all the distinct user ID. Okay, so if it has duplicate, it will not display. Okay, same way for var. So select star from posts var ID equal to 2. We can mention it in this way. Suppose if we want to have and, okay, you can have the same condition and you can add some conditions here. And user ID equal to 1, something like this. Same applies to your R. So R. So either of the condition, any condition. Okay. Same way it can be like not equal to, and it can be like greater than equal to 1. Okay. So anything. Okay. So that's the thing. Here, then what we saw is in. So in is nothing but if you want to give multiple values, you can give them. So in ID in, and you need to give some array of values 1, 2, 3. If you want to give this, you can give it this way. Okay. Suppose if you want to have not here, have same here and not in. Okay. So in not. Okay. So then we had something called like. So like. So select star from posts where name like. Okay. So if it start with A, okay, you can use it A here. Okay. Same applies if you want to end with something like yes. Okay, you can have it in this way. Same way if you want to match them with some random values. Okay. So sun, okay, it can be start with sun. Okay, and you can add some other values as well. So percentage differs. Okay, suppose if you want to have a word that starts with A, okay, and ends with S, okay, you can do it in this way. So a word that starts with A and ends with S, okay. So you can basically have these things, these particular values, okay. So the percentage values, okay. So that is the thing. So what else? So limit like wildcards, and then I just told you order by. So order by. Is wildcards case sensitive? Yes, it's case sensitive. Okay, so order by. So select star from post where, for example, I need to sort them by order by ID. If you want to give ascending, okay, you don't need to mention it at all. By default, it's ascending. Suppose if you want to have descending, okay, you can mention it this way. Okay, so this is about your order by. Okay, So next, so next is your limit. Okay. So see here now, I have two things. Okay. So we can mention limits. Okay. What is the limit is? If you mention a limit with some number, okay, only that particular count of numbers will be displayed. Okay. So if I use limit 1, okay, only one row will be listed. See, same way if I use limit 2, only two rows will be displayed. Same way for 3 and 4 and 10 and other things. Okay, so both basically whatever the numbers that you give here, okay, so that particular things will be displayed. So we use it for pagination. So in the front end we will be using pagination, right? So we will do page. We will have some queries, something like this. Okay, so 10. Okay, so suppose if I use 2, okay, it will be displaying only 2 data. Okay, so that is the thing. So this is what limit is. So extracting your result with some pagination, only two rows should be listed, or only if you use one, okay, only one row should be listed on other things. Okay, so this is all about your limit. Okay, so it displays only one row. Okay, and that is one more thing here. Okay, so you can have some start rows or start conditions. Okay, suppose if I use 0 comma 1, okay, it will start with 0. Okay, suppose if I use 1 comma 1, okay, so see, I2 is displaying. So what is happening here? Okay, see here now, if we use directly 1, okay, 1 rows will be displayed, 2 rows will be displayed, 3 use, if we use 3 rows will be displayed. Okay, basically. Okay, so now I use 2 rows. Okay, so where do you start here? Okay, so it's something like from and comma 2. Okay, limit can be used it in this way. So 0 comma 1, 1 comma, you can use something like 0 comma 2, whatever. Okay, so basic thing here is, so in your table, this is 0th position, this is first position. Okay, and 2, 3 and other things as well. Okay, so if you use limit 1, it is going to display first record. Okay, so basically here only the first record. Okay, but if you want to have 1 comma 1, what happens here is it starts from 1, okay, and gives you one row. Okay, so see now second rows will be displayed. Okay, so this is something like your starting row. Okay, if you use 0, so starting from 0th row, give me one row. If you use 1 here, starting from first row, give me one row. Okay, so if I do 1 comma 1, okay, what happens? ID2 is displaying, this particular row is displaying. If I use 0 comma 1, okay, so it is going to display only it starts from 0th position and going to display 2. Okay, 1 here. Okay, same way if I use 2 here, what happens? It starts with 0th row and going to display 2 rows. Okay, so 0 and 1 will be displayed. Okay, so see 0th row and first row. Okay, suppose if you mention 1 here, okay, so from the first row, okay, from the first row, so which is first row? So 0, this is 0, this is 1. Okay, starting from first row, display 2 records. So 1, 2. Okay, so 1 and 2. I don't have anything here, right? So it is going to print only 1. Okay, so see here. Okay, clear on this? So you can mention some starting values. Okay, so basically in your table, understand this. Okay, so in your table you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and these things. Okay, so you can mention those values. Okay, so here if you mention 2, okay, it is going to list you 2 rows. Okay, so basically it is going to display 2 rows. But if you want to mention some particular row, starting row, okay, you can mention it in the first here. Okay, so here, so 0 comma 1. So what happens here is, starting from first row, display my 2 records. So starting from my first row, display next to 2 records. So 1 and 2. Okay, starting from first row, 2 rows. Starting from my first row, so 0th row, first row. Starting from my first row, I need to display 2 records. Okay, so 2 and 3. Okay, so 2 rows should be listed, right? But I don't have any data, I have only 2 data, so it's going to display only 1. Okay, same way if I use 0, okay, what will happen? Starting from 0th row, display 2 records. Okay, 0 and 1. Okay, so see, so both the records will be displayed. Same way if you use 0 comma 10, okay, so starting from 0th record, okay, display me 10 records. Okay, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So until these data, it will be listed. Okay. Same if I use 0, comma 3. Okay. 0, 1, 2, 3. So first to 4 records. That's what 0, comma 3 is. Same way if you use 1, comma 3, starting from your first row, get 3 records. So this is first row, second. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So 1, comma 3 will display first starting from first row and give me 3 rows. Okay. So that is all about your limit. Okay. Clear? Clear on the limiting part? So these are some important things that you need to know. So limit can be used as a one param. Okay, so you can use something like this. It will directly give you 3 records, 2 records, and 4 records. You can mention the address, ID. Okay, starting row. Okay, so 1, comma 3. It is going to start from first row. Suppose if you want to start with 4. Okay, so it starts with your fourth row. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it starts with here. Okay, so it starts from 4 and next 3 records. Okay, so 4, 5, 6. Okay, those records will be listed. So that is the thing with your limits. Okay, so you can have multiple things. So something like if you mention 2, comma 3, it will start with your second row. Okay, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Okay, two more total. Start with second. Give me 3 rows. Okay, so that's sort about your limits. Okay, yeah. So your limiting part is done. Next, what we have. So between. So here, what is the between? So you can mention some values. Okay, for example, you can mention some ranges basically. Okay, for example, I need to get ID between. So between is 1 and 2. Okay, so you can mention something like this. Okay, or where ID where. Okay, so something like this. So post where ID, okay, between 1 and 2. Okay, you can mention some ranges. Okay, suppose if you want to get like 4 to 6. Okay, you can mention it the way. Okay, so 4, 5, and 6, those records will be fetched. Okay, suppose if I use like 1 to 2. Okay, so see, only 2 records will be listed. Okay, same if I start with 2, between 2 and 4, 2, 3, and 4, those rows will be listed. Okay, so here this row will be removed. Okay, so only this particular row will be listed. Okay, so some ranges. So you can have some range values. Okay, in order to fetch your ID. Okay, so where ID between 2 and 4. Okay, so basic your English. Okay, so where ID between 2 and 4. Okay, so if we do this, only IDs that has IDs like 2, 3, and 4, those rows only will be listed. Okay, so that is all about your between. So I can have between here. Okay, so it's again where condition. So you can give some ranges like 1 to 2. Okay, 1 and 2. Alrighty. So between is done. Okay. So group by and having. Okay, I'll first finish aggregate function and come to this class. Okay, because both are interrelated. Okay. So far clear on this where classes. Already. Let's move on to aggregate functions now. Okay, so here, so as you know, what is an aggregate? So it's going to uh, combine your values and give some data. Okay, suppose if you use count. Okay, it is going to give the count of your data. Okay, same way sum, it is going to sum your data. Same way average, mean, and max, and other things. Okay, you will see now. So here if I want to get all the count here, I can use count of star. Okay, if I do this, so total my table has 2 radars, right? It will give me the count. Okay, so count of star, it will give me 2. What is the reason? Because I have only 2, because I have only 2 rows in my table, so it's giving me count. Okay, a count of star is going to give me 2. Okay, so that is the thing. Same way, if you go to give the sum here, so what I'll do is, I'll just sum the ID. Okay, so if I use sum of ID, so what will be the data? Okay, what will be the output now? Sum of ID. Exactly. So sum of ID is going to give you 3. Okay, so that is the thing. So basically, sum of the thing. So what we do? What is the purpose of these things? Suppose you have add to cart button. Okay, so for example, your order can have multiple products, right? So if your order have multiple products, but in the end you need to sum those total and display them for the in the payment page. Okay, so you'll basically use sum there. Okay, sum of all the products for that particular user. For example, where equal to, so where user ID equal to 1. Okay, if you do this, so for the first user, sum all the product prices. Okay, so in that case, you can use your sums. Okay, so this is scenario. Same way for minimum here. So which is the minimum ID that is going to display here. Okay, so out of those two values, 1 and 2, so 1 is the minimum value, right? So 1 will be displayed. Same way if I use max, so maximum of values inside your ID. Okay, it's going to display 2. Okay, and same average is going to display the average of 1 and 2. Okay, so 1.5. So average of your 1 and 2. Okay, so 1.2. Okay, so basic aggregate functions that are in your uh, inside your that is given by your MySQL. Okay, so basic aggregate functions. Okay, so clear on this? Already. Okay, so now let's move on to the group by part. Okay, so group by is nothing but, so you have this data. Okay, so insert what I'll do is I'll insert some data now, because for the group by I need some data. So insert into user ID is going to be 2, some random things. Okay, so then user ID equal to 2 again, and going to be 3 now. Modify this value. Okay, so okay, so now see. So consider I have user ID equal to 1. So user 1 has posted 2 posts. Okay. User 2 has posted 2 posts. Same way user 3 has posted 1 post. Okay. Suppose you need to get count by user. For example, what your output should be is, so user ID and count. Okay. First user posted 2, second user posted 2, third user posted 1. Okay, so if you want to get this count, okay, so basically what you need to do, so if you use directly count, okay, Suppose if I go here, so go here and directly count my data, what will happen? Okay, it is going to give whole count. Okay, so what is the count in my database, in my table? Okay, so all the count. Suppose you need to give the same count and based on user id. Okay, so count of records for user id 1 is it's 2, and for 2 it's going to be 2 again, and for the user id 3, so user id 3 has posted only one post. Okay, so you need to group first. Okay, so you need to group them using user id. Okay, that is the purpose of your group by here. Okay, so see, if I use group by, okay, and first I am going to group by and then getting the count. This is going to count all your rows. Okay, so if you use group by some field here, so user id, okay, something like this, it is going to give the count, okay, based on the user id, and you can have your user id here, user id comma count of star. So user id 1 posted 2 records, user id 2 posted 2 records, user id 3 with 1 record. Okay, so basically grouping your column. Okay, so you can group one column and you can get the count, or you can get like sum of your ids. Okay, you can get your sum of ids as well. Okay, so by based on the user id. Okay, so for example, first user id, it will add the 1 and 2. For second user id, it will add 1 and 1. For third, it will add 1. Okay, so that is what the sum here, 3, 2 and 1. Okay, it can be sum, it can be min. Okay, but it is going to group by your user id. Okay, based on user id you are getting your minimum, based on user id you are getting count, based on user id you are getting the maximum value. Okay, but if you don't use group by, what will happen? There is only one group. Okay, so basically all the list. Okay, so user id and maximum of your id in your post will be displayed. Okay, so maximum of id inside your GUI post is, it's going to be 2. Okay, so it's going to be 2 here, right? Maximum of id. Okay, suppose if you use maximum of user id, so it's going to be 3 because the maximum value inside the user id is 3. Okay, suppose you don't need at the table level. Okay, not the complete table, but I need to first group them by user id. Okay, so what happens here is, whenever you use group by post, okay, so whenever you use group by, okay, whenever you use it in this way, so group by user id, what happens here is your whole table will be like separated. Okay, based on user id. Okay, so the first user id data will be here, so those data will be here, second user id data will be here, and third user data will be here. Okay, and those rows inside it, 1, 2, and same way those rows inside it, 1 and 2. Okay, and inside your third there will be 1. Okay, so they will have some group by here. Okay, whenever you use group by user id. Okay, by user id you are grouping them. Okay, and then if you use count here, okay, so it will give you 2. Same way if you use count here, it will give you 2. Same way if you count here, it will give you 1. Okay, so count first, grouping them and giving the count value. Okay, so if I use count here and count of star, okay, see, now it's giving you based on the user id. Okay, if you want to use the user id here, so first user id having there are two posts given by your user id. Same way there are 2 posts given by your second user id. Same way there is 1 post given by your user id. Okay, so that is the purpose of your group by. Okay, clear? Clear on the group by part? Can everyone confirm? Okay, in the chat box. Okay, so someone asked me to repeat here. Okay, see here. Suppose if I use count of star, it is going to give me the count of all the data in my post table. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4 and 5. Okay, so 5 is displayed. Okay, so what is the purpose? Suppose you have a scenario. Okay, you need to group by your user id. Okay, so grouping is nothing but for example, if you go to Excel. Okay, so suppose if you want to group them by user id. Okay, so first what will happen here is user ID 1 is having two data, user ID 2 is having two data, user ID 3 is having one data. Okay, so basically this is post, right? So user ID 1 has posted two posts, user ID 2 has posted two posts, user ID 3 has posted one post. Okay, so suppose if you want to have get the count based on your user ID or based on the based on whatever the column. Okay, so here I took my user ID. Okay, so you can use something like this. So group by user ID. Okay, so what it will do is it will group your data into with your user ID. Okay, what happens here is it will take user ID. Okay, and these two rows will be inside user ID 1. Same way if you use user ID 2, okay, because you grouped by them, right? So this is one group now. Okay, so basically this is one group, this is one group, and this is one group because you group them by user ID. Okay, user ID is same, right? So you used group by user ID. Okay, it will group your data based on user ID. So this will be one group, this will be one group, and this will be one group. Okay, so now we can like if you count them, okay, what will happen? So first user ID will have two data. Okay, because first group, right? Same way second group will have two data and third will have three only one data. Okay, so see here user ID and so user ID and the corresponding count. Okay, so see first user ID group will have two data, second user ID group will have two data, and third user ID group will have one data. Okay, because you group them by user ID here, so you group them by user ID. So user ID 1, this is one group, this is one group, this is one group. Okay, based on user ID. So if you want to get the count, just give count of star. Okay, so it will now count by group. Okay, first group has two data, it has ID 1. Second group has two data, it has group ID equal to 2, and third group has one data and user ID 3. Okay, clear now. All right. Okay, so our group by part is done now. Okay, so let's move on to the next. Okay, having. So now I'm going to see here now. You use star off here. Okay, so something like this. Okay, select star from groovy post. Okay, so basic query. So I have these things. Okay, now I have my aggregate functions here, right? Okay, okay, aggregate function. Suppose if I want to do where um, something like id equal to max of my id. Okay, something like this. See here now where id, okay, my id here. Okay, so I'm going to get one row, okay, where id equal to max of id. So max of id is nothing but it's 2, right? Okay, so only that particular row will be should be displayed. Okay, suppose if you want to have it in this way, okay, suppose you have a you need to query in this way, id that is in your maximum id inside your database. Okay, so something like this, id equal to max of id. Okay, if I run this, it will give me error. Okay, invalid use of group function. Okay, so what is the problem here is you cannot use your aggregate functions in your where condition. Okay, something like this, id equal to maximum id. Okay, you cannot do this, it will throw you an error. Okay, and that's where having class comes as a savior. Okay, so if I go here where id having maximum of id. Okay, sorry, I need to group them. Okay, group by id, high group by id having um, what is happening here? Incompatible. Okay, so actually this is my office laptop. Okay, so it has some restrictions. I need to set some configurations. Okay, so that's why I couldn't get it. Okay, so basic thing here is you can use your aggregate functions in your where condition. Okay, you can use it in this way, like group by id having maximum of id. Okay, so that is what basically means is, so if you do this, okay, so it will group your ids and will have the it will select only that particular id, maximum of id. Okay, so that is the purpose of your having class. Okay, so group by, so you can use it anyway. Okay, you can have any conditions here. Okay, so basic thing here is you need to understand here is you cannot use aggregate functions inside your conditions here. Okay, it can be selected. So suppose you can use count of star, something like this. Okay, count of star. Okay, but you cannot use the same here. Okay, so for example, if you cannot use where id equal to count of star, something like this. Okay, you cannot do this, it will throw you an error. So invalid use of group function. Okay, and that is the purpose of your having. Okay, so you guys please try it. Okay, so there is a restriction here, so you have to use group by along with your having. Okay, so then it will give you the corresponding count. Okay, so that is the purpose of it. Okay, I will show you once I'll just modify the settings and then show you. Okay, so basic understanding here is you cannot use aggregate functions inside your where condition. So there will be a debugging question in your interview. Okay, so they will have aggregate functions here in your where condition, something like this. Okay, so that you should directly answer them that you cannot use aggregate functions or group functions inside your where condition. Okay, you can select them but you cannot use them. Okay, suppose if you want to use them, you can use group by having. Okay, so having you can use it and then you can able to access them. Okay, so that is the understanding here. Okay, clear on this? So clear on the aggregate functions and class. So here I missed to update again. Okay, so here I need to add my aggregate functions. Okay, I will give you this list. Okay, so you can directly have them. I don't need the query. Okay, because this is going to be aggregate function, and you can use directly here. Okay, inside this particular statement. Okay, so then yeah, your class and aggregate functions are done. Okay, and the last topic is keys. So let's see. So if I go here, okay, I have 5 rows. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so what is the unique ID in this particular column? Okay, or this particular table? So what is the unique here? Suppose if I want to get my id, okay, so which is like post that has id 1. Okay, so we should have id, right? So you can see, so basically we will have id as a unique value, but see here now, 1, 2, again I have 1, 1, and 1. Okay, so what happens here is you cannot select like where id equal to 1. Okay, it will list you 4 data. Okay, so it should not be the case, and that is where primary key or keys comes into place. Okay, so in your react, what I told you, what is a key? So just to verify your understanding, what is a key? Exactly. Suppose if you have loop, okay, so you should have a unique key that is going to differentiate between the rows. Okay, same way, each and every table should have a unique key. Okay, so we basically use id column here, right, to have it as a unique key. Okay, so something like unique value, or you can give something like keys. Okay, so how to give keys? Okay, suppose if I give here, okay, so 1, 2, 1, and 1. Okay, so if you use keys here, now it is allowing me to insert data, right? Suppose if I go here and if I use insert statement, there is already a post with id 2. Okay, if I try to insert, okay, it will insert the data. Okay, and if I run this, see, it has been inserted. Okay, so this should not be the case. Okay, so you need to give this particular column. Okay, you need to give some configuration that this particular column. Okay, so where is the column here? So your id column, okay, should be unique. Okay, you should give some conditions. Okay, so those conditions you should give you in your ddl command itself. So whenever you create a table, you should give some conditions that this particular id should be unique, okay, in your data, okay, in your post table. Okay, so how can you do that? Okay, so there are two type of keys. One is primary key, one is foreign key, and I will say you what is foreign composite key. Okay, so primary key is nothing but, just now I told you, right? Each and every table, okay, will have a primary key, which is something called a unique value. Okay, so your id here should be a unique value. Okay, so how to add a primary key, or how to add something like a unique value? Okay, so here I'll use the same create table here. So this is going to be your primary key topic. Okay, so primary key topic here, and if you want to create a primary key, so the same query, so create table post and id equal to int and user id, title and body. Okay, if you want your row id should be unique. Okay, so just go here. Okay, just add primary key. Okay, and inside that, whatever the column that you want to have. Okay, so here I want to have my id column. Okay, so id column as a primary key. So go here, and what I'll do is I will remove this table. Okay, so I'm going to create a new table now. So here, see, same table, id equal to int, user id equal to int, title, body and primary key. Okay, if I run this, your post will be created. Okay, your table will be created now. Okay, so now post will be created here. Okay, so no values inside it. Okay, so for now, go to insert statement. So I'm going to do insert now. So see now, id is 1, user id is 1. Okay, I will have something called post 1. Okay, so run this, it will be inserted. Okay, so if I go here, it is inserted. Okay, so now if I try to insert the same id, see here now, it will throw me an error. Okay, see here, duplicate entry 1 for key post. Okay, so now you cannot insert any values, okay, any rows with id 1. Okay, which is unique. Okay, you cannot do again, you cannot insert again with the same id, because in your ddl you mentioned that this particular column should be a primary key. Okay, so primary key is nothing but it is an identifier, okay, in your sql table, okay, in order to identify a particular table. Okay, so unique in your table. Okay, so primary key is nothing but a unique value or an identifier for your rows inside your table. Okay, so now if I try to insert it, see, it will throw me an error, it will not allow you to insert. Suppose if you want to modify 2, now it will allow you to add. Okay, so if I run this, 2 will be inserted. Okay, same way, if you run it again, it will throw you an error. Okay, so duplicate entry 2. Okay, so clear on the primary key, how to create a primary key. Can everyone confirm? Yeah. Yes. So now, okay, so now we have given the primary key here. Okay, so we just completed our primary key part. Okay, suppose if you want to remove the primary key. Okay, so remove primary key. So these are all something like ddl, it comes under ddl. Okay, I'm going to show you again. Okay, so alter, so you need to remove your primary key, right? So alter whatever the table that you want to alter. Okay, so alter table post. Okay, suppose if you want to drop your primary key, just go here and drop your primary key. Okay, so drop primary key. Okay, so what it will do is it will remove the primary key for your table. Okay, if you run this, okay, so now if you go here, go to the table, it has two data. Okay, now I removed my primary key part because alter table post and drop primary key. So now if I insert with an ID 1 and 2, okay, it will allow to me insert. Okay, so 2, see, now it's inserted. See, again 2 is inserted. Okay, so this is how you can drop your primary key. Okay, so basically this is to drop your primary key. Okay, so now suppose you have created a table without a primary key, and then later point of time if you want to add them. Okay, so add primary key to existing table. So how can you do it? So again the same here, alter table post add primary key and whatever the value, whatever the column that you want to give. Okay, simple. Okay, so if I go here and run this, okay, so I'm going to add my primary key again. Okay, it will throw me an error. Okay, what is the reason? Yes, so you already have some duplicate values, okay, inside your table. Okay, now you cannot create your primary key. Okay, so that is that will not allow you to do. Okay, suppose if you have some unique value inside your ID, it might allow you. Okay, but since there is already a duplicate row, it will not allow. Okay, so I will delete this row. Okay, I will delete. Delete from posts. ID equal to 2. Okay, so now if I do this, okay, so now if I do my duplicate key, now see, it is allowing me to add a primary key now. Okay, so now if I go and insert it, 2 will be inserted. Okay, so go here and run this, so 2 will be inserted. Okay, so we'll have 2, so 2, same way. Now again if you try to insert them, okay, it will throw you an error, duplicate entry. Suppose if you have to add 3, it will allow you to insert. Okay, so now see here, 3 is added. Okay, so this is how you need to add some primary key. Okay. So now the primary key part is done. Okay, so we'll see what is a foreign key now. Okay, so in order to do that, I need to explain you two things. Okay, I will explain here. In your user table, okay, what you have, ID, something like name of the person, address, city. Okay, you have these tables. Okay, you have this table and you can have them here. Okay, so here I have one more table called post. Okay, what it has, again it's going to have ID, okay, and user ID. Okay, so who is the user posted this user ID. Okay, and this user ID is nothing but this ID in your user table, right? So user ID, title, body. Okay, so what I'm trying to explain is clear, right? So your user table is having something called ID, name, address, and city. Okay, same way my post table will have ID, user ID, title, and body. Okay, this user ID here, right, is pointing to this ID in my table, right? Am I right? So in your React application, what we did, we fetch all the users. Okay, we fetch all the users and have them in the drop down. Okay, so that using that ID, we will be storing, we will be getting user ID for our post. Okay, so basically this user ID, okay, is nothing but the ID in our user table. Okay, and that is something called here. Okay, you need to mention that. Okay, this user ID points to this ID here. Okay, you need to mention that. Okay, suppose unfortunately, okay, so there is like in your user table you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you have 4 data. Okay, with ID 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, suppose if you try to add a post with user ID 5, okay, it should throw you an error because this ID, that the fifth ID is not present in your user table, right? Okay, which is something like an issue, right? Because this is not going to be your ID, user ID is not available in your user table at all, but you're trying to add that user ID to your post table. Okay, so that's why you need to give identification or an identifier, which is something like a foreign key. Okay, so ID, your user ID here. Okay, so inside your user ID, your ID is primary key. The same ID is a foreign key inside your post table. Okay, clear on this part. Your user ID, okay, and your user table has ID, name, address, and city. Obviously, we'll have ID as a primary key, okay, in order to identify this particular row. Okay, in order to identify each and every row. So your user table has 1, 2, 3, and 4 ID. Okay, so there is not like fifth ID or sixth ID. Okay, so then in your post table, okay, you have again ID, you have user ID, title, and body. Okay, suppose if you try to insert a post with user ID 5, okay, it should throw you an error, right? Because your user ID has only 4 data, your user table has only IDs 1, 2, 3, 4, but you are inserting invalid data inside your post table as ID equal to 5. Okay, which is wrong, right? So you need to mention something called a foreign key. So what is a foreign key is, your user in your user table, your ID is something like a primary key in your user table. Same ID is a foreign key to your post table with the value called user ID here. Okay, clear on the difference between primary key and foreign key? Alrighty. Okay, so now let's do that now. See here now. So I am in my post table. Okay, so I will delete all the rows. So I will delete all the tables now. Okay, so I have a table post. Okay, and I will have one more table called users. It's going to have ID, name, address, city. Okay, and okay, so I have a users table. It has okay, so this is going to be your user table and this is going to be your post table. Okay, so users, it has ID, name of the user, address of the user, city, and I'm setting a primary key to my user table. Okay, so I'm going to run this. So now my user table will be inserted. Okay, so here my user table, I can add some values, 1 and something like Govi as a name. Address is I can give like something like test. I can give Chennai. Okay, and one more user 2. I'll have test or Tamil here. Address is something like test 2, and I will have something called Chennai again. So that's not an issue. Okay, so I'm going to insert 2 datas. Okay, oh, I gave integer to my name. I will drop the table, have the varchar again here, have 50 characters. create the table, display the users, one, movie, some test address, something like Chennai. Okay, two, then the name should be Thomas like this. I can have any values here. I can have Chennai. So if I try to insert them, okay. So my users table has ID equal to 1, 2, Kubi equal to something like name equal to and some other things. Okay. So now you have created a user table. Okay. Your user table is done. Okay. You have some primary key already. Okay. This key. Okay. So this user ID is a key. We are going to mention this ID in our post table also, right? So this ID, your users table ID, is going to used in your user ID here in your post table. Okay. So that is the hierarchy, right? So that particular ID is a primary key in your user table. Same should be a foreign key inside your post table. Okay. So here we can mention foreign key. Okay. So which is going to be a foreign key, your user ID. Your user's ID is going to be a foreign key. Okay. So what is the table that is going to refer? References. See, foreign key of user ID. Your user ID is going to be a foreign key. It reference, okay. So it is going to references your user table, okay, and which is the column. So user ID here, okay. See here now, your user ID is here, okay. So your user ID is your post table. That is a foreign key in your table, okay, and it is going to refer, okay, references your ID column inside your user table, okay. Foreign key, user ID, references, user, the ID column, okay. I can now insert them here, okay. So fail to users, okay. So done, okay. Our configuration is done. Now see here now, in my user table I have 1, 2 and 3, okay. So I mean 1 and 2, okay. So now in my I'm going to insert my data. So I'm going to insert some data to my post table, okay. See what happens. So here in my user ID column, I'm going to mention ID equal user ID equal to 2, okay. And I'm going to give some test data here and let it be test data here, okay. If I do this, it will be inserted, okay. So if I run the my post table, so if I run the post table, user ID 2 is inserted, okay. Suppose if I use 3, what will happen? So if I use user ID equal to 3 here, okay, what will happen? See, so not see, this is the one. See, cannot add or update a child row, okay. What it means is your third ID here, right, user ID equal to 3. So this is not going to, it is not present in inside your user table. So it will not allow you to insert at any point of time to your post that user doesn't exist. So three user doesn't exist in your user table. It will never allow you to insert into your post table. Okay, you are restricting them inside your database itself. Okay, so what is the primary key? Primary key is nothing but a unique key or a unique column inside your table. So here your unique column is ID. Okay, same inside your users table. Same way in your post table, you have a unique key, which is something called ID. Okay, so it is going to be a primary key inside your post table. Okay, and same way in your post table, okay, you are referring a user ID. Okay, so your user ID is here. You have a user ID is that user ID is a primary key inside your users table here. Okay, so you are referring an ID from your another table. Okay, so which is a key from the foreign. Okay, so foreign, okay, it's an outer thing. Okay, so foreign key, you're mentioning user ID is a foreign key, and what is this particular ID references? it is going to refer your ID column inside your users table. Okay, if you mention this, it will never allow you to add a row or add a value. Okay, insert a value inside your table. Okay, at any point of time. Okay, so that is the thing. Suppose okay, so now I will ask you this question. Okay, where is that? So here I have select star from GUI post. Okay, it is going to have user ID 2 here. Okay, so now it's inserted. Now if I come to my users table and remove my second data here. Okay, so I'm going to delete from users where ID equal to 2. Okay, so see here. So I have added user ID 2 inside my post table. Okay, because there was already a data, it was allowing me to add. Okay, so it was allowing me to add now. Okay, now if I come to my user table and delete my ID equal to 2 here, what will happen? So understand my question? You inserted a row with ID 2 here, user ID 2, okay, in your GUI post data, because you already have you have a user with ID 2 here. Okay, and that's why it is allowing you to add that particular user to your post table as a user ID value here. Now if I go to user table and delete my ID equal to 2, okay, what will happen? So I'll try to do this here. See, it will not allow you to do, it will never allow you to do, because cannot delete or update a parent. Okay, so you cannot delete your thing once you set up a relationship. Okay, it will never allow you to break there. Okay, it will never do that here. Okay, so if you want to delete this user 2 here, you need to come here and delete this row, and then only you can delete your second user here. Okay, suppose if I go here and delete the user here. Okay, so delete the rows. Okay, so now my post table doesn't have any relationship with your user table. Okay, now if I try to do this, it will now delete it. Okay, so now if I select my user table, okay, see here, second data will be deleted. Okay, and that is the purpose of mentioning a foreign key. Okay, so you should always restrict, you should always mention your relationships. Okay, so this is what relational database is. Okay, each and every data is related to one another. Okay, and if you set up a relationship, something like foreign key and something like primary key, and those relationships you are set, once you set them, okay, it will restrict you to uh, overcome the overcome errors. Okay, so it will restrict them there itself. Okay, you cannot do as it is. Okay, and that's why if you go to banking applications or any other very something like more relationship things will be using relational database. Okay, so they don't prefer any other databases. Majorly, banking sector, e-commerce and those things. Okay, everything is going to use MySQL. Okay, because there is more relationship inside it. Okay, and yeah, clear on this, clear on the primary key and the foreign key. Can everyone confirm? Yeah. So now there is something called composite key. Okay, so composite key is simple. Okay, so if you have multiple primary keys in the same table, for example this is your post table, right? Suppose if you want to add multiple primary keys, for example I have ID as a primary key, you can mention multiple things here: ID, user ID. Okay, suppose if you mention this, okay, there will not be any rows, something like this. Suppose ID equal to 1, user ID equal to 1. Okay, and ID equal to 2, and user ID equal to 1. Okay, so this can be there. Okay, there can be anything like 1 comma 1. Okay, because again there cannot be 1 comma 1. So your primary key is added to your ID and user ID. Okay, to both the things, and that is something called composite key. Okay, so you are having primary keys to both two columns, something called ID and user ID. Okay, so if I run this, Okay, already I have post table. Okay, so basic understanding here is you can create the table. Okay, same way here you can add the table, but the thing here is composite key is nothing but a combination of two or more columns. Okay, so two or more columns you can set it as a primary key. Okay, so this is very rare, but you know to know that. Okay, that is something called composite key. Okay, so you can mention it this way. Clear? Clear on the composite key part? Already. Okay. So the last topic in your MySQL basics is auto increment. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to delete both the tables. So I'll delete it. Deleted, 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 and deleted. So 200%, 200%. Okay, so here, so last topic is auto increment. Okay, so auto increment. So what is the purpose of auto increment is? So here you have ID, okay, and you have ID here, okay. So suppose, so we basically have ID columns as integer and primary key, okay, and we will generate automatically, okay, and that is the purpose of your auto increment, okay. You need not mention the value for your ID, automatically it is generated. So if you mention auto increment here, same if you mention auto increment here, okay, so users table, your post table. I created two tables. Okay, so auto increment. So auto increment is nothing but the values will be automatically updated. Okay, see here now. I'm going to my users table. Okay, I'm going to insert here. See here. I'm going to insert only name. GUI test Chennai. Okay, so see I'm not updating my ID column. Okay, so apply and close. Okay, see automatically my ID is generated. Okay, same if you want to add some other rows as well, it will automatically generate. For example, go here, test 2, Bangalore, and apply. Okay, see it will automatically take two data here. Okay, so it will take the two. Okay, the same applies to your post table as well. Okay, so if I go here, my post table, so I have my insert statement here, right? So insert statement, so here I don't need to mention my ID at all. Okay, so only you can insert only the user ID data also. Okay, so insert. Okay, so if you go here in a post table, see ID1 is generated automatically. Same way, some way like user ID2 or something like this. Okay, if you insert it, okay, see automatically ID will be generated. Okay, same applies again if I do insert, and same I run this. Okay, 3 will be generated. Okay, so that is the purpose of your auto increment. Okay, so auto increment is to mention that particular column is unique. Okay, so we usually have it as a primary key. We usually may so that you will have different values whenever you insert a data, right? So that is why we are mentioning it that way. Okay, so auto increment will do we will not insert the data to that particular column, automatically it is generated. Okay, so that's how I told you, right? Whenever you insert post, okay, so here, so there are like 100 posts, okay? ID equal to 100. Suppose if you insert a new post, you will be getting ID 101, right? In response, okay? So that's how it is been. So they will insert user ID, title, and body alone, okay, to a database. Your database will insert ID equal to 101 by default, okay? And your database will handle them and will be getting the response ID equal to 101, okay? Clear on this? Clear on the auto increment part? Can everyone confirm? So you are in, this is going to be a foreign key, and I add the auto increment as well. Okay, So composite key is nothing but you can just add the column here. Okay, no difference. Okay, yeah. So varchar limit set 50. Can you use auto increment there? How can be a varchar auto increment? You can increment only the integer value, right? You cannot increment the character, right? You cannot do that. Okay. So then truncate. Yes. Thank you for taking up that. Okay. So here, so we have one more statement. Okay. So thanks for taking up that. There is a statement called truncate. Okay. Suppose, see here now, if I go to the users table, I have two datas. Okay. Suppose if I want to delete my data, so delete all the records in my data here, delete star from users. Okay. So what this particular statement will do? So delete from users. What this particular statement will do? So I have two datas. Okay. I'll ask in this way. What is the difference between these two statements? Yesterday I explained you. So drop table user, okay, is going to delete the entire table, okay, even there is no table at all, okay. And the second table is it is going to delete all the entries inside your table, not the table, okay. If you do this, only this particular two data will be removed, okay. If you use drop table, okay, whole table will be removed from the database, okay. So see here now, I use delete term from users, okay. So there is something called truncate. So truncate table users, okay. So it is exactly going to do same thing like your delete, okay. It is going to truncate your table, which is something like clear all the data from your table, okay. So inside your using your delete, okay, you can add some conditions, right, where id equal to 10 or 2 1 something like this, right, okay. So what happens here is if you don't want to do it in that way, if you want to delete entire table inside your database, okay, so you can use your truncate table users, okay. It is going to delete all the data inside your table, okay, clear. So that is what your truncate is. So truncate table users nothing but delete from users, and truncate table users both are same. It is going to delete all the entries inside your users table, okay, clear. So then you can ask me, then what is the purpose of delete from the users and truncate table user? Both does the same job, then why do we need that? Okay, so there will be a question here, right? Let's see. I'm going to truncate my table now, okay. So cannot truncate a table, okay. So there is a post already here, that's why it's not allowing me to do. So I'll delete all the rows. Yeah, that's what. So the major difference between here truncate and delete here is you can have conditions, okay. You can have something like where id equal to 2, only that particular table will be deleted, okay. But truncate table users will be deleting all the data from your data table, okay. So truncate table users here, okay. So truncate table, okay. So this is the difference, okay. See here now, when I try to truncate my data users here, okay, see truncate, okay. So if I, there is two data here, okay. Suppose if I use to truncate table, okay, so if I run this, it will not allow me to do, okay. Even there is no data in my post here, okay. My post data doesn't have any data, and my user data I can delete them here, okay. I can truncate them, but it do not allow me to do. What is the reason is because you have referred that particular table, okay, using your foreign key here, right. So once you set up a foreign key to a particular table, okay, so foreign key and user ID, it is referred here, right? Referred your users table, right? it will not allow you to truncate your table at any point of time. Okay, it will throw you an error. Okay, if you want to truncate your table, come to here and remove your foreign key, and then only it will allow you to truncate the table. Okay, but if you use delete here, see, I'm going to use delete, so I'm not going to have any conditions. Okay, I need to set up the flag. Just give a minute. This is settings that I need to add. Okay, so now if I do delete from users, okay, it will allow me to delete. See here. So even if I refer that particular column, okay, it will check again. It will check if there is a data inside your post table, the referred table. If there is no data, it will allow you to delete. Okay, but in your truncate table, what happens here is if you reference a particular table as a foreign key, okay, so it will never allow you to truncate your table at any point of time. Okay, so that is the difference between your delete from users and truncate table. And your delete from users, you can add some condition. Okay, you cannot do that here. Okay, so here truncate table user is to delete all the entries inside your table. Okay, delete from users, you can use them to delete all the entries, or if you want to add some condition, you can add that condition as well. Okay, something like this. Okay, so that is the difference between them. Same way, second difference is if you refer a particular table as a foreign key, for example, your user table is a foreign key here, right? Okay, if you do this at any point of time, you cannot truncate your table. Okay, but you can delete that particular entry from your table, provided there is no entry inside your referred table here. So if there is no entry in your post table with that particular ID, it will allow you to delete. Okay, if there is no data, it will not allow you to delete. Okay, clear? Clear on the difference between delete and truncate? So here, truncate. Yeah, so that's it for MySQL basics. Okay, so do you guys have any questions collectively in MySQL? What is the difference between unique key and primary key? Okay, so unique key and primary key. So both are same, like primary key and unique key. So both are to allow you to have them in your table. Okay. Only thing is primary key allows null values to be stored in your database. Okay, so basically here in your user table there can be a null row here. Okay, if you want to have, but in your okay, sorry, for the unique key. Okay, so for the unique key you can have some null values, but in the primary key you cannot have a null value. Okay, but both the thing is same. Unique or primary key both are same. It will check for any values, any duplicate values inside it. If there is a duplicate value, it will not allow you to insert. Okay, but your unique key allows you to have your null values, but your primary key doesn't have. Okay, so that is the thing. That's the difference between them. Yeah, so I will share you these things, and here difference between, okay, what is safe update mode? That is a setting actually. So it's a setting in my MySQL. So in my it's my work machine. I have them set up here. Okay, I think there will not be any setup in your machine. Okay, so basically what it means is, what is a safe update mode is. So since you asked it, suppose if you try to delete many rows, okay, or try to delete multiple columns or multiple tables, okay, it will throw you a warning. Okay, so you are going to update or delete your bulk table or bulk data inside your database. Okay, so basically like truncate table or delete star from table or updating directly without any condition. Okay, it will throw you those warning, say SQL safe update. Okay, so if you want to set them off, okay, you can have this SQL safe updates equal to 0. So one is, so by default it's 1. Okay, that's why it's throwing you a warning that you are going to update multiple statements. If you mention it 0, your settings will be off. Okay, so that is the purpose of your SQL safe updates. Okay, clear? Yeah, difference between alter and update. Alter is to update table structures. Yeah, Nikhil mentioned it. So alter is to update your table structure. Basically, alter is going to work inside your DDL. Okay, so it's going to alter your definitions. Okay, but your update is nothing but this is going to deal with your updation in your data. Okay, so not the definitions. That is the thing here. Yeah, so I'll just copy this and share it here, and then I need to share this thing again, right? Because we have updated them. Go to the desktop and share this. And I have shared those, and feedback link is here. Yeah. Yeah, that's it for today, guys. And the MySQL basics are done. Okay. So we'll see MongoDB from tomorrow. So we will compare the things that we covered today in same inside your MongoDB. Okay. Yeah. Have a great rest of the day, and please try out these things. Okay. Please don't do uh, like just like that. Okay, so you need to know these commands. Okay, so these are all some very basics of MySQL. Without this you cannot understand MongoDB, because I'm going to compare them, right? So you need to know that. So please try out those queries, install them, and have them ready in your application. Have them implemented in your MySQL workbench. Okay, yeah, that is the thing. So form is 27/7/2021. Is it so? Okay, just give me a minute. Yeah, guys, I informed your student coordinator. Okay, so they will share you privately. Yeah, yeah, thank you. And they will share you the feedback link. Maybe they will post it in the Zen portal. Maybe, not sure, but they will share you. Okay, yeah, thank you. See you tomorrow. Bye.